Oh, it was good stuff. All right, I think that Tony is...
I'm already here.
Oh, you were already here. How did that happen?
Well, it magically appeared.
You know, and I gotta be honest, that is kind of weird. Like it said, join with call, and I wonder, did it not ring through just because you had already sent me a call?
Maybe so. Maybe because I'd already tried to invite you, it kind of gave you the option to do that.
How long is that window of opportunity, though?
Yeah, so I was gonna say that kind of weirded me out
because I don't want you to know what Daniel and I usually talk about after about 15 minutes or so.
I know. I don't want to know what you talk about ever.
This is Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 193 Pun Bingo!
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal on the gaming industry today. I'm your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, is Daniel Kaiser and Brent Adams. Daniel, how you doing this week, man?
Ho, 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 everybody. DK money up in your...
What?
Santa Claus DK money. All up in your grizzle. That's right, because it feels like Christmas in June, because this Xbox meeting feels like Christmas morning to me. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for the reveal of the new Xbox. And just like the excitement that surrounded the PlayStation 4 meeting, this Xbox meeting is getting ready to happen, and I can't wait. So I feel like it's Christmas morning, except this time I've got pants.
I call fanboy shenanigans. I was
about to say, I was like, I don't remember you being quite this excited about
I think this is total bias in the media right here.
Bullshit. This is no. Here's the deal. I've always said,
Daniel, this is so egregious. You ought to have Jay Carney reading out like your take on the.
I've said for years that I've enjoyed the 360 more than the PS3 this generation, and the last generation.
There, he admits to it.
You see?
Right there.
But we've also had much more lead up and ramp up time to this because Microsoft announced it way earlier. Sony just sprung that shit last time on that meeting. It was like, hey, next week we're having a meeting.
Why don't you sick the IRS on him, Daniel?
Time for all the hype and editorial.
Oh yeah, there was like an extra week. Like,
no, it's like an extra month.
I'm just fucking with you. I really don't care, actually.
I do have pants, though.
Brent, how you doing this week, man?
What's up, my bounty hunters of brutality, my smugglers of scourge? How art thou?
A Star Wars theme.
Oh, why would I be doing that, I wonder?
I have no idea. Did you get hired by EA? When I wasn't looking?
I'd be that employee that's like busted into people's offices. Everything you're doing is wrong. All right, I want you to know this.
So you'd be the typical EA like boss or something, right? All right. Well, we have plenty of stuff to talk about this week, so let's go ahead and run through the gauntlet. All right, guys, we are here in the gauntlet, and the first bit of news that we're going to talk about this week is the new media and some of the things that are being thrown around Assassin's Creed 4. Yes, DK, what have we been hearing? What have we been seeing here recently?
We've been seeing quite a bit. Obviously, this is a huge game from Ubisoft. We're expecting it to be one of the cornerstones of E3 2013. And this past week, we got some new media, which was basically a trailer just kind of playing up the whole pirate theme and background, talking about the history of pirates and how you will have an opportunity to be immersed into that setting. I think the trailer did a pretty good job of making you want to get invested in that and exploring the possibilities, especially the part about debauchery. But anyway, the game's looking pretty cool. We didn't get to see a ton of the actual game thus far. Not just this past week, but since it's been announced, we've seen a little bit of it. But one of the big things that came out also was the fact that the developers at Ubisoft started talking about the game's performance on the PS4, talking about the social connected features, about the graphics, about how the game is going to be a true next-generation game in the Assassin's Creed franchise, even going so far as to call the PlayStation 4 a, quote, perfect jewel that they have to find the ability to, within themselves, to hone and to make this experience what it could be. So that's a very lofty statement from the developers of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on both what you're thinking of the game thus far with the latest media updates, but also this concept that the PlayStation 4 is this perfect jewel for developers with all that it has to offer, both graphically, socially, and in all the other interactive ways that it brings to the table. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was thinking back to the reactions that we were having post PlayStation 4 announcement meeting, and one of the things that we honed in on that Sony was really, really trying to dial in and hammer home was this idea of the PlayStation 4 being a developer-friendly platform, and really going out of their way to emphasize how involved developers were in the design of the system architecture, how they were, reaching out and talking with developers both internally and externally to find out what it was that they wanted from a next generation console, and how they really built their new system around that wish list. And so I think that what we're seeing here is just the logical next step in that particular sales pitch, and that is just reminding people, really driving home this point, hey, developers are really, really happy on our platform, and when developers are happy with hardware, good games come out as a result. And so I think it's an effective strategy. I think that Sony absolutely should be hammering this home. I think we all agreed during the lead up before the actual announcement of the PS4. I think we all agreed that this was a point that Sony needed to address. They have such a bad reputation, I suppose, with the last couple of systems that they've done, notoriously hard to develop for. I think we all agreed that this was something that needed to change, and I think that it's absolutely correct for Sony to be driving this point home, because I do think that it's going to be a major selling point, not necessarily for consumers per se, but certainly in attracting top-tier talent and trying to get developers to do the best games that they can on the system, and that, of course, will turn into, hopefully, sales to consumers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think it's a little bit part of why they said that. I mean, this was obviously a PlayStation video. It was on, PlayStation.com.
Propaganda film.
Pretty much.
I mean, it's not propaganda necessarily, but it's just, I mean, they're talking about the one platform we at least know something about yet. If the Xbox announcement had been this past week, I dare say that, it would have, that comment may not have been made, or
Sure.
may have been said like, hey, these new platforms are like perfect jewels. I mean, it's just, I don't really think that I think you could read too much into that particular statement. I do think, though, to what Brent was saying, I think that Sony, at least right now, I'll be really interested to see next week what Microsoft brings to the table. But I do think that most people feel like Sony is going to have a little bit of the hardware edge, and in terms of development, hopefully are going to be on par at least with the other platforms out there. So there's something to be said that that the experience is going to be possibly best on the PlayStation 4, but we got a long ways before we'll know that for sure. The footage they showed, I mean, the vast majority of the trailers they kind of showed in there was just sort of like ink artwork and stuff, and it was kind of
neat,
but not gameplay, obviously.
Sure.
But then they did show some stuff that looked potentially like in-game gameplay. Now, I mean, probably running on a PC or maybe a dev kit or something, but I mean, it looked impressive. It didn't look like anything that just would blow me away, on next-gen hardware. But it looked solid. But I don't know.
It looked like a solid step up from current gen, but not the idealized next gen that we all are kind of waiting for.
Well, exactly. And I mean, who knows? Maybe that's because it's fairly early in or what we're seeing is fairly early in the development process, and what we'll see at E3 will be even further along, or what we'll see at the Xbox release. Who knows?
As far as the developers are concerned, I just want to note, that some of this comes off to me as like they keep talking about how easy it is to program for the PS4, which is great, and I'm totally excited about that. And Sony did exactly what they need to, as you guys both stated. But part of me is also like, is this them just rebounding from how bad it was in the last generation, or is it like, are we taking a step forward, or are we just getting back to square one where they should have been all along? But either way, as long as, like what you guys said, that it's going to result in great games, I don't know, but they're definitely making a concerted effort to play up the fact that developers are not having a tough time. That's the way I look at it. Instead of it like they're having they're all this great stuff, it's like, oh, well, we're not encumbered by all this stuff we were in the last generation. Seems to be the more accurate message, No,
absolutely. I mean, and there's no question that Sony is really going to have its hands full winning over fanboys like yourself. So the next,
Just go listen to our post PlayStation.
The next bit of news we've got is a few new media and a few new details around the new Wolfenstein, Wolfenstein: The New Order. Brent, you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. Well, we've got a teaser trailer for the game. We've also got some new screenshots that have been released, and we've got some details, ironically, not necessarily on what will be in the game, but what will not be in the game, and that is, of course, multiplayer. We found out that this is going to be a single-only first-person action-adventure shooter. And the plot of the game, the premise, is an alternate history set in the year 1960 in which the Nazis won World War II with all of this mysterious advanced technology that they were able to employ, and that they are now controlling the globe with an iron fist. And you take on the role of B.J. Blazkowicz, the American war hero and the only man capable of rewriting history. So
Let's Blazkowicz him.
I mean, the jokes do write themselves at this point. However, I don't know. As Lauren and I were talking about in reaction to the teaser trailer on the X Factor, you know, Wolfenstein's got a big place in my sort of gaming career early on. It was the first title that introduced me to this whole notion of FPS, and it was a real game changer for me at the time. It was like nothing I'd ever played, and I still have very fond memories of that time with it. So I get a little bit of a nostalgia tingle whenever we kind of talk about Wolfenstein. But what do you guys think about this new entry? Do you think that this is going to be something that's going to really stand out from the crowd, or do you think in a climate where first-person shooters are all the rage, that this is just going to just going to end up kind of falling by the wayside as yet another FPS that's not going to rise to the level of a Call of Duty or Battlefield or something?
Well, if you read into the press release, which we should have mentioned was accompanied by some new screenshots, which to me looked really good. I mean, I thought they looked really impressive. Some people are commenting on kind of the art style and stuff, that it looked a little bit like Killzone, but I mean, to me, I thought it looked like a really fun game. Like I actually, just based on the screenshots alone, seemed like something that I would like to play. But if you read into the press release, there's several interesting little tidbits. Obviously, we know that the game is running on id Tech 5. But they talk a little bit about how you were mentioning the story there, Brent, and the Nazis have won the war with these super weapons that they've used to conquer Earth. But they also say and beyond. So maybe the game's gonna go outside of Europe and maybe go not only globally but galactically. There might be some potential for that. They also talked about how the game has these different types of scenarios: underwater combat, some car chases, things like that. And they also talk about the fact that the advanced weaponry is going to play a big role in the game. They also say that it's a tightly paced, super immersive game. So I don't know if that's meaning it's going to be more of a very highly scripted Call of Duty type of thing or what. But all in all, this definitely is something that is on my radar, and something that, like Wolfenstein is, I think, something that resonates with a ton of gamers, and something that I think people will check out just because of the name alone. But in a nutshell, there's some interesting things in this press release that definitely put this on my watch list for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I've always, of course, I have the same kind of feelings about the original Wolfenstein 3D, to kind of get you started. But I don't know what it is. I've never quite, like, what was it, Return to Castle Wolfenstein that came out, kind of midway between when the original was out and now. I always felt like this series was just a hair on the sort of style over substance. Like, I really never thought that the games were like that great. I mean, they were kind of they were fairly basic, but they looked great.
Papers.
They looked great. They had great graphics. They had, I think they will. To your point, I kind of think it will sort of be a scripted event kind of heavy game. Not to mean that it won't be fun, but I think it will be something more along the lines of like a Doom, or to be honest, most of id's first person shooters like Quake and Doom and the like. So I don't know. Like, I'm not terribly excited about it. It looks okay. I definitely want to see more of it before I kind of make any kind of determination on it. But not too terribly excited about it. The other point is, I don't know, this whole no multiplayer thing, I'm going to kind of call bullshit. I think it's probably no multiplayer at launch. Like, I would almost argue that there will be multiplayer component to this game at some point.
I actually really applaud them for trying to buck the trend. I mean, like, if the game ends up being like a super focused, first-person, immersive experience. And they're like, look, like multiplayer is not what we want to do. What we want to do is make a game that's going to make you, the one person playing it, feel, really immersed and just wrapped up in this story in this world. I'm all for that. I really.
We've talked about this a bunch of times before, and I agree with you if they do that, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not necessarily saying whether they should or shouldn't. I'm just saying I don't really see them doing that. I bet you anything that before this game hits shelves, we'll at least get an inkling that it's going to, probably have some multiplayer down the road. Maybe not at launch, but an add-on or something like that that'll come to it later. But
that'll be interesting to see if that happens.
Yeah.
I think so far it looks wunderbar.
All right. So next up, we have the announcement of the pre-order bonuses for a game that should have already been out at this point. The Rayman Legends has just gotten a new trailer, and we've gotten some of the details on the pre-order bonuses that you'll get if you have pre-ordered over the last year. DK, you want to tell us what goodies you'll get?
So Rayman Legends, as we know, is coming out this September for the PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii U, which it was originally exclusive for, as we all know. But what Ubisoft announced this past week is that depending on what platform you purchase the game on, you will get some exclusive content in the form of special character skins that will be utilized in the game and are based on other Ubisoft properties. So if you pick it up for the Nintendo Wii U, Barbara in the game is dressed as Aveline the Grand Prix. I don't know how you say her name. The girl from the female assassin from Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, which is actually a pretty cool looking skin, but that's specific for the Wii U, so that's what you'll get if you pick it up on that platform. If you get it for the PlayStation 3, you get Edward Kenway from the Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, the game we were just talking about, yet to be released game. And then also, if you get it on the Xbox 360, you'll get a Sam Fisher skin from Splinter Cell Blacklist. So Ubisoft tapping into its other properties to bring some cohesion to the launch of Rayman Legends. What do you guys think of this? Personally, I don't like being pigeonholed into one specific skin. I wish they would maybe just give you a voucher for a skin of your choice or whatever.
I agree.
But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't really like the skin per platform thing. Although as Tony was just saying, let's face it. I mean, they'll probably release all the skins on the platforms at some point down the road, and you can pay for them or something like that. The one thing I will say in this trailer, I loved. Rayman Legends looks like it looks gorgeous. Fantastic looking game. But I really, really was digging on the kind of stealth mechanic, the use of light and dark in this sort of like infiltration gameplay mechanic that we were seeing a little bit of in this trailer. That looks uber cool. So I'm really glad that this game is coming to all the other platforms. Originally I believe it was a Wii U exclusive, and then obviously it's gone through this sort of development hell over the last year or so, and coming to all platforms, which I'm really excited about because I do think it looks like a great game. Yeah,
it does look awesome. What about you, TG?
I don't know what it is about this game, but I really feel like it's going to get completely lost, like at the time frame it's coming out. Like had it come out when it was supposed to for the Wii U, it could have potentially helped that platform a tiny bit, because I think there were a decent group of people that were looking forward to that title. Once they sort of pushed it back, it's sort of we always talk about how I think you kind of lose that when you've seen something for so long, it kind of loses just a little bit of its luster each time. I mean, I think the game looks awesome. It looks great. I've played it, a little bit. I don't know what it is. I feel like it'll get kind of lost in, at the time frame it's going to be coming out later this year. I don't know. The pre-order bonuses, of course, hate the way they're doing it. But to echo Brent, I don't think it's even if it's an exclusive, it's not going to make my determination on which platform I buy it on. Which platform I buy it on will just be which one I typically play more often, or which one I prefer the control pad on, or whatever. Right now, nothing. To be honest with you, I'm playing probably PS3 or Xbox about the equal amount.
PS3, right, you fucking fanboy. No, but to your point about the purchases, though, let's not forget that there's a broad and really diverse audience for Rayman, because like it it fulfills a lot of the 16-bit fantasies that we had growing up, and like something that is, the evolution of that genre from back then, executed really well. But then, it's also fun, and it has a lot of appeal to younger gamers of this generation. So I think,
and I do agree with that. But let
broad.
me just ask you though, genuinely, like later this year, out of all the titles that are coming out, do either of you think you would be buying this game?
Personally, this is higher on my list because it's a game that I could play with my family. It's a game that I would play with my sons. So if I, there's the games that I know I'm going to get for me, but when it comes down to like maybe a great Christmas gift or something like that, this is, everybody loves Rayman.
For me, it's probably a rental, if I'm honest, just because I don't know until I play it. I don't know like how much replayability this would have with me. So more likely than not, this would be something that I'd get for like Xbox 360 on or get it at Redbox or something like that.
Yeah, and that's the way. I don't know. I don't feel like it's. But whatever, that's just personal opinion. So let's move on to our last bit of news this week, which is a pretty cool one. The new Total War Rome 2 is getting a release date and a collector's edition that, frankly, is pretty damned awesome. Brent, you want to tell us a little bit about what all it comes with?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, the thing that you need to know is that Total War Rome 2 is going to be releasing on September 3rd this year across all territories, and that is in both physical and digital forms. There is some pre-order bonus DLC, and there's a trailer for that you can check out that's going to introduce 3 playable factions to the game, the Epirus, Athens, and Sparta factions, and those all come with their own unique units, buildings, missions, win conditions, tech trees, etc. I think the really interesting thing to discuss here is the completely badass collector's edition that has been announced. And bear in mind, this comes from somebody who is normally very, very cynical about collector's editions, but this one, I gotta say, is pretty freaking awesome. So here's what you're going to get. Number one, you're going to get a numbered copy of this collector's edition. They're only doing 22,000 of these collector's edition units. So they, I don't know how many people are ultimately going to buy this game, but it's not, not everybody that's going to probably want this is going to be able to get it. So, you get your copy of Total War Rome 2. You get the Tabula set, which this is a physical thing in the box. This is the Roman forerunner to backgammon. The board that you play on is actually built into the bottom of the collector's edition box. You get the and I have no idea how to pronounce this. The Tesserae dice, I think, is how it's called.
Sure.
These are 3 replica bone, in quotes, dice that are used for a variety of games. These actual have an actual, basis in historic fact. There have been archaeological digs that have found these dice, in and around Roman enclaves over in Europe.
Dice just like these were given away as pre-order bonuses back in about 81 BC.
About 81 BC. It's crazy how little the human race has changed. They've got this card game called Total War Cards Punic Wars. They describe it as being designed from the ground up to echo elements from Rome 2. It's a game of skill and luck for 2 players, consisting of 58 high-quality playing cards, and then there's a printed game board tech tree that is also a part of that. There's
game of skill and luck for 2 players. You said punic, not pubic, right?
Ha, 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 ha. There's also a canvas campaign map that comes in the box, but I think we can all agree the absolute best inclusion of this collector's edition is the fact that it comes with a fully functioning Roman siege catapult. Yeah, that can be used, and I love how they go out of their way to specify that can be used to fling projectiles at inanimate objects which may have affronted the glory of your empire. I'm here to tell you right now, this thing goes on my desk, it's getting flung at any damn thing or person I choose. So
here, step in front of the catapult.
That's exactly
and tell
right.
me again.
I'm telling you, offices all over the world are going to discover the joys of having projectile launchers on their desk. Not that they don't already, but
sure.
A Roman siege catapult's pretty damn awesome. I got to say that I think that's a very, very cool inclusion in this collector's edition.
Yes, and the price. The price is a bit steep.
Well, there is that of course too. Oh, I didn't mention the price. What is the price? It's
the price is $155
plus $25 for shipping.
Bucks.
Yeah, so it is steep.
It's pretty steep. I mean, you're almost $200 in on this thing, but you know what,
get a
though?
cabinet.
You're getting a lot for your money, though. Like there's a lot of collector's editions where you get like a plastic figure, and you kind of, and I know people that are huge fans of them will usually say like, yeah, but this one's really good. But I mean, this one comes with a lot of shit. I mean, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It seems really well thought out. Like, it seems like if you were going to spend almost $200, $175 or whatever on something like this, what would you want to do? Like, what is going to make it memorable?
I would want to hit people with stuff.
Exactly. Right.
No, but you got the card game, you got the backgammon thing or whatever the hell, the tabula, whatever, I don't know. But I mean,
it is interesting that they feel like they'll be playing lots of other games besides.
I think that's cool though. Like, I think that, like, as opposed to something that just goes up on your shelf and that you look at, the idea that they're actually like giving you stuff that you could potentially play with, whether it's this dice game or this backgammon thing or the the fucking catapult. I think that, like, the fact that this stuff is actually functional and playable is really cool. Actually,
yeah.
Totally.
Really, it's come to that. All right, guys, we are in the main topic this week, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the new news that the Star Wars gaming franchise has been picked up by the most evil of empires. That is EA. So EA has gotten together with Disney and decided to they've bought the rights, and they're going to be making all the Star Wars games going forward, and that has caused a lot of
disconsternation,
apprehension. I would be maybe the most politically correct word to use there. Dan, you want to take us through some of the concerns everyone out there has with this new pairing?
So we didn't have an episode last week, and obviously this news came a little while ago, so we wanted to have an opportunity to discuss it amongst ourselves and then open the floor to our fan base as well. But basically, to reiterate, most people listening to the show know by now, but Disney and EA did enter into a multi-year exclusive licensing agreement that basically empowers EA to publish new games based on Star Wars characters and storylines, is exactly what it says in the press release. And the games obviously are going to be designed for the core Star Wars audience, while looking to expand, as always is the case with Star Wars, expand the brand. And they're going to span all interactive platforms and most popular genres. What we do know is that very proven studios within the EA umbrella of DICE, of course, behind Battlefield, Visceral behind Dead Space, and BioWare, who needs no introduction, Star Wars: The Old Republic, Mass Effect. They are going to be at the helm of this.
Introduce them if they needed no introduction.
Yeah,
they're going to be at the helm of this and helping to develop these new games. So obviously, on the one hand, there's apprehension about EA and everything that it stands for, but on the other spectrum, there's a new hope. There is, something that I think Star Wars fans can look for in terms of saying, you know what, we're not getting a ton of great Star Wars games right now. A lot of the great games have been in flux. Is this what the franchise needed? Even though we know there'll probably be, lots of shenanigans with DLC and whatnot. Is this what the Star Wars fan base needed in order to actually see great potential projects come to fruition? Let's discuss.
No, it doesn't. And
okay, why?
So I think that, to me, this deal smacks of somebody wanting to get lots of publicity, because it's like, all right, it's EA and Star Wars. It's like these two huge mega franchises, and they're going to be coming together. And EA has already worked on, Star Wars games, and they've got the Old Republic, and this is like a match made in heaven. I totally get why, to the corporate mentality, this deal makes sense, but I think that doing the exclusivity thing ultimately is where I've got the biggest problem.
Exclusivity is a big deal no matter who you're talking about.
Because it's just, they could have. It would have been more trouble to manage, which is why they didn't do it. It would have been more trouble to manage, but they could have set this thing up where they could have licensed individual things to individual companies for, singular projects, as opposed to saying, okay, well, we're going to like give all first-person shooter Star Wars games to to EA, and DICE is going to be working on those, and we're going to give like third-person adventure Star Wars games to Ubisoft, and we're going to give space sim Star Wars games to to this company over here. That would have been much more trouble to manage, but that would have ultimately I think that ultimately would have led to better games. That's not to say that EA doesn't have really talented people working in its in-house development studios. It's not to say that good games won't come out of this. I don't know. To me, I'm not hearing this announcement and thinking to myself, oh, great, EA with all of its money and resources is going to be focused on, pumping out, the greatest Star Wars games ever. I just think that this is going to be ultimately limiting in the kinds of Star Wars games that we're going to see because of the fact that EA, they don't tend to break the mold very often. EA tends to do, sort of whatever's popular, those are the kinds of games that EA seems to go after. And when something really unique does come along, like a Dead Space, EA almost immediately turns it into whatever's really popular, which is a third-person shooter. And maybe Star Wars is mainstream enough that it appeals to those mainstream sensibilities, and therefore nothing's really lost by doing it that way. But I just can't help feeling like had they gone the other direction and license this stuff out a la carte, that it would have led to more diverse and creative Star Wars games as opposed to what I feel like we're going to be getting, which is ultimately just sort of like, let's find a way to use Frostbite with, Star Wars. Let's find a way to do some. I don't know.
Sure.
But anyway, that's the fear that I have, I guess.
Sure, but I mean, I don't know. It seems like everyone that's sort of in that sort of camp, I do think just has sort of they don't care for EA. They don't care for the way they do things. They don't care for their games in general. No. They don't like that. Like I've said before, I think EA goes after a little more of the mainstream audience. And
sure.
it's that group that's not necessarily keen on mainstream games that get sort of frustrated by that, but then it's opened up to arguably an even larger audience when they do that. So I don't know. I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing. I do sort of. This reminds me a little. Brent. You and I are both into movies and things like that quite a bit, and it does remind me a little bit of like the way DC does their movies, where they kind of inked a deal with Warner Brothers, where for years and years and years. I know, but for years and years, Warner Brothers was the only company that would make the DC movies. Yeah. And Marvel kind of did this deal more recently, where they're like, "Hey, we're gonna have all these different studios working on movies," and I do think that in general that worked better for Marvel. I think this is potentially that same thing. Like, you'll probably get some good quality out of EA, but in some cases, maybe not quite as much new takes on things. The one thing I would sort of keep in mind is think about the potential for what can kind of happen. Think about, like, I think one of the games that I think most people would love to see come out of the Star Wars franchise is Battlefront. Battlefront 3, people talked about, like, Battlefront 1 and 2 were like hugely successful, but they were kind of back on systems that were really not very internet connected. They were not very strong in that world. No. Now we have
was
a world
game
where
that came out about 4 years too early.
Well, exactly. But, and if you haven't ever seen some of the footage from Battlefront 3, it looked amazing. It was kind of coming out really at a better time. Imagine if the guys at, say, DICE got the go-ahead to do a Battlefront game.
Oh, that's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's a guarantee.
That's got to happen.
Well, I mean, I think that it should happen. My whole point, though, is think of how amazing that game could be.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, I agree with you. That one game will be awesome. I just don't want every fucking Star Wars game to be some, derivative of Battlefront.
But that was my whole point. That you didn't let me kind of go. I'm saying, imagine they take that franchise and go that direction with it. Imagine the guys that do Dead Space, maybe the original team that worked on that, do a Boba Fett, offshoot or something. Imagine all the things that could happen. Imagine you take, like, somebody wants to do more of a kind of a swashbuckling epic, with like Han Solo or a character similar to that, is done by the guys that did like the Dragon Age series or the Mass Effect series. Like I feel like there's
Knights of the
potential
Old
there that
Republic.
people don't think about, rather than kind of giving it the chance of like, let's wait and see.
I hope that happens. I mean, please understand what I'm saying. I hope that you're right and that I'm wrong. I would much rather get, a really great collection of Star Wars games from, some of these really, really talented development studios. I really hope that that's the case. I don't know. I don't want to see Star Wars watered down and mushed any more than it already has been at LucasArts.
Well, but
and
I also
don't
think
forget-
that has. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'll let you, just real quick though. I'm sorry. I felt like Kanye West there for a second. Real quickly though, the whole point though that I was kind of going for is I do think that the same way that I think people were sort of happy and apprehensive when Disney acquired the rights to the Star Wars film franchise. I think most people in general were excited. Like, hey, Lucas, to be frank, kind of had some opportunities later in the kind of property. But, someone can take it, and apparently Disney's very excited about what they can do with it. I think that could be just as negative, too, potentially. Like, they could do tons of offshoot movies that just may or may not be great. But you've got to kind of give them that chance to sort of prove it first before you kind of condemn them.
Okay.
Well, and I'll just 2 points I wanted to make. I think that when you look at the pedigree of the studios, that I'm actually excited to see. I'm not the hugest Star Wars fan in the world, but to see, I'm not really looking forward to Battlefield 4, but I would look very much forward to Battlefield 3 using the same exact tech. Just
3.
because to me that would be more appealing for me as a gamer. But when I look at the potential of the games, there's no doubt in my mind that those studios combined with that IP are going to create some really good games. But I do think that you are going to see, because of the mass market appeal of these games, a lot more nickel and diming with the DLC, a lot more kind of
see that with everybody.
the infusion of those kind of business models with these projects, which I think will, for us, pull back the reins on the excitement a little bit, although the core game, I think that they'll be able to deliver that. Now, the second point I just want to make is, don't forget, this is a multi-year licensing agreement that will go likely throughout the new Star Wars films. So they're going to have new material to be pulling from, that they're going to be creating new games with their studios. So a lot of what they might be conjuring up isn't really going to be based necessarily on old things, but we might also have some new offshoots and some new things for them to explore and to get creative with. So they have the opportunity to do that because.
Well, it also it depends on how good that material is as well. Like, I mean,
Sure,
if they do have to make a new game based off of one of the new movies, and that new movie maybe doesn't end up being as good as we hope.
But the game could be better than the movie. That's happened before.
Yeah. Lucas did it with the last 3 films.
So yeah, all good points. I fully admit that my fear is really what's talking right now. As opposed to the announcement, when Disney acquired Lucasfilm, I was optimistic about that because I really felt like it would be difficult for anybody to fuck Star Wars as much as Lucas did. And my instinctual reaction was a positive one.
Mental image.
But my instinctual reaction to this one, it was not a positive one. And intellectually, I can hear the points that you're making and say, yes, that makes sense. Yes, there's tons of Star Wars fans in the game development community under the EA umbrella, and yes, those people will work really, really hard to make great Star Wars games. But I mean, isn't that kind of the story of BioWare working on SWTOR? And that game, I don't think ended up as great as they wanted it to, although I think that it's a better game than most people give it credit for. I do think that it's a solid title. It's a solid MMO experience, and doesn't deserve all the bad press that it gets. Having said that, though, there's a lot of people that used to work at BioWare and that were publishing to those famous anonymous blogs while they were still at BioWare that talked about the corporate culture that sort of just kills creativity and imagination. Sure. Inside not just EA the publisher, but inside of BioWare itself, because of just the corporate culture that has taken over there. So those things do concern me, and I Like I said, I mean, I think that you're making good points and everything, but I still have this sort of instinctual fear that is going to be a systemic problem that's now going to affect all Star Wars games as opposed to just that one title.
I agree. I guess my point is that's a systemic problem with gaming as a whole right now, I think. I think some of the same problems you have is this sort of mentality that the company that's making the game force feeds multiplayer in when it shouldn't be, or makes you do DLC when maybe it's not what the developers originally would have hoped for. I mean, unfortunately, some of the problems you're talking about I don't think are exclusive to EA. I think
that's a fair point,
maybe EA may be the worst the worst example of some of those, and I'll give you that. I think sometimes they do, but like you talked about the DLC with them doing, nickel and diming you with microtransactions. What company isn't doing that to some degree? Some of them do it at small enough a degree. Well, okay, but I mean, how many of those companies are there, though? I do think that
But that's kind of the whole point, is that, CD Projekt Red, would have been, I mean, like with the engine that they've got for The Witcher, I think that they could have made an amazing Star Wars game, and they're not going to get that opportunity now because of this decision.
Yeah, but
that's the point
I dare say that they would have had a hard time getting that kind of landing that sort of property. Period. I mean, that is kind of, Star Wars is big enough that it is going to have a certain life of its own. And to be frank, it's got a certain negative connotation too. To be brutally honest with you, there have been I shouldn't say far more. I think there have been equally as many piss poor, not good Star Wars games as there have been really good Star Wars games. Star Wars is not just I
agree with that.
It's not just free right to print money. It's a property that inherently brings with it some great things and some problems. And so I don't necessarily know that this is good or bad for EA. This is just they've got the property now, and they can do with it what they will. And I mean, personally, I'm just hoping they do a FIFA 13-13. All right, guys. Well, it is coming up near the end of this week's Skirmish, but first, we have our battle cries of the week.
When
and,
one Falcon
my battle
just
cries
isn't
go out.
enough.
We talked about the Total War Rome 2 earlier, and the collector's edition, the special edition that came with that. And that's all well and good. And I mean, that's cute that they have a $155 collector's edition with some neat stuff. But that is all well and good. But Koei Tecmo is releasing the Nobunaga's Ambition Collector's Edition, which is going to include all 13 of the Nobunaga's Ambition games, along with a 12-disc soundtrack set, an art book, and a Matchlock replica rifle.
Holy crap!
So you get a fucking gun.
Well, you get a replica gun. You can't actually launch your racers with it.
Well, I don't know. You might. We will have to wait and see.
There might be a way to modify it.
But for around $520,
do you have access to a 3D printer?
For around $520, you can have this collector's edition. But I gotta be honest with you, I actually just the fact that I mean, that's a very cool kind of thing to hang on your wall. It's got like it's got the logo on it. It's got all this sort of stuff. It looks really, really cool. But also just the fact that, I mean, basically every version of the game since the initial game was released, which was like back in the early or mid 80s, I guess, at least. Yeah. Every single one of them, 12-disc soundtrack that has, music from the entire run of the series. I don't know. Very, very, very cool. If you've ever been a fan of any of those, I really can't say that I played them in a long time, but I remember back in the 8 and 16-bit days, I remember playing a few of them, and actually, pretty cool, strategy games back in the day. But very, very cool, and feel free to part with quite a bit of money to pick that up if you're interested in it.
No doubt. It's so
just don't point that thing at people.
Yeah, that could be bad. So basically, it's either do I get a PlayStation 4 or do I get this collector's edition? It's going to go one of those two ways probably.
It's very true. Uh-oh. All right, well, Brent, you might get some extra cash with your battle cry here. So what is your battle cry this week?
My battle cry is about Payday 2. This, of course, is the follow-up to Payday the Heist from Overkill Software, and we found out that it is on its way to consoles and PC this August. It's no longer going to be limited to downloadable distribution. It's going to have retail versions on the PS3 and the 360. And I just want to point this out because I was a big fan of the original Payday. It was a really clever game. I really enjoyed what they were trying to do with tactics and strategy and trying to make the game different, trying to make this really unique co-op experience. And I thought it was really great. Having said that, it was not a title that didn't have some issues and that didn't have room for improvement. And I'm really glad that the first title did well enough to warrant a second title and give them the chance to address those things, to tweak and expand on what they've already built. And I'm really looking forward to the follow-up to Payday. I hope that it will improve on all the things that the first game could have used a little work on, but continue the spirit of fun and tactical shooting that the first Payday was all about. So anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to that title and remind everybody to be looking for it this August.
Do you hope that it's more sweet or salty?
You know, I like salty and sweet, so I'm going to just have to say
Well, you should love Payday.
Yeah. I actually, I'll tell you a story about Payday later on. It's disgusting,
I find it
though.
really
I'm gonna warn
ironic
you.
that if people would steal this because it's at retail, because the whole game's...
Yeah.
It would be ironic, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Don't you think?
Let's not
All right,
do the Alanis
DK.
Morissette thing again, okay?
I'm almost afraid to ask this, but what's your battle cry this week?
Why are you afraid to ask me my battle?
Because you'll be talking afterwards.
You are so fucking mean to me. And
Nothing
it was
good
just
ever
my
comes
birthday, and this is how you treat me on my birthday. And you know
of
what?
that. Is it your birthday?
It was. Fuck you.
Let's just
So
you know what?
mean.
Let's just hold
Everyone
judgment
listen
until
to
we
this. These
hear
guys
your
are
battle
so
cry
mean
this
to me.
week.
Help save me.
Let's just you know what? I tell you what. I will withhold saying anything until after your battle cry this week.
Okay. So here's my battle cry this week. It's a promo. Tune in to GameTrailers.com and Spike TV on May 21st.
Jesus.
No, because actually, I already told you, I'm, just as a gamer, just like I was excited for the PS4 announcement. Don't give me shit. Listen to the show after the announcement and what I had to say. I'm very excited to see what Sony brings to the table in the next generation. I'm equally as excited to see what Microsoft counters with on May 21st.
I think you're
which
infinitely
is next
more
week.
excited about.
Hey,
what
you're
Xbox-
talking.
Yes. So I want to encourage everyone to tune into GameTrailers.com and Spike TV. We're going to have live coverage of the event. I'll be doing stuff with the GT team the night before with our pre-show as well. But if you're looking to see the Xbox revealed, the new Xbox, then you need to look no further than GameTrailers.com and Spike TV, as we have the exclusive rights to broadcast this program by Microsoft, which the new generation of Xbox will be revealed. So I'm very excited about it. I hope people tune in, and I can't wait to hear what people will be saying, including us. We'll have a special episode of Epic Battle Cry all about the Xbox Next, or whatever it's going to be called, next week, although we don't know exactly when. So just stay tuned to the Epic Battle Axe Facebook and Twitter. We'll keep you updated because our schedules are going to be super duper crazy next week with everything going on, but we will find time to record some reaction and get it up in an episode form. So stay tuned for that. So anyway, there's my battle cry. Watch the next Xbox be unveiled on Game Trailers and Spike, and enjoy yourself while you're doing so.
Wait,
Tony,
what?
feel free to speak.
What do
I
you
do
mean
think
by
it's funny
enjoy
that you have an
yourself?
exclusive deal to release this, and you usually hate exclusivity deals.
Well, it's a lose-lose. Nobody's happy ever. Everybody, gamers like to find the negative side. Brent's talking about the negative side. Everyone's negative. Everyone's being negative. Be positive, will you? I hope the thing doesn't red ring.
All right. Well, that was a good battle cry. Definitely watch the announcement. I think it will be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm
Brent?
very anxious to see what they end up countering with. It's going to be. I mean,
yeah.
let's face it. The fanboy war has just begun, and I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see those people murdering each other off over the course of the year.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, and also I think it's kind of interesting because we really didn't see many games. I mean, we saw some footage but arguably it was much earlier too when the PS4 release happened. So I'm excited about this. I'm almost more excited. This is probably the first year I'm super excited for E3 because I think we will come out of it having seen so much more than we would see in most years. Just
I
because
agree.
of,
Yeah.
this. So
I think
anyway,
you're probably right.
I think you have our member battle cry, don't you, Brent?
I do indeed, and it comes from Tokyo Choo Choo, and he says, E3 is dead. In contrast to what Tony just said, the internet, constantly connected devices, and social media have mercilessly pummeled it into submission. Let's face facts. If Microsoft unveils their new console online or at E3, it will still get headlines. You can unveil a new game in a demo booth at a local zoo, and within 30 minutes, it would still be posted on every gaming website in the world. Real-world events don't mean anything to anyone except attendees. With our current state of unending media deluges, do you really think a new piece of gameplay footage from Grand Theft Auto 5 would be more meaningful because it was taken from a live event that most of us didn't attend? No, it's exactly the same as seeing it at any other time in the year. Information is information. Location, time, and live audiences no longer have relevance in our new virtual gaming world. And to a large extent, I have to say that I think he's right. And
he's absolutely right. I mean, I think we all kind of agreed. Like, the only reason I say like my statement before that is I do think this E3 will be a kind of rare occasion where we haven't seen some of the stuff that will be first shown at E3. Like, you know, here lately we get stuff so early, but this year with it being a console launch, they are holding things off. But it wouldn't matter if they did it in LA or fucking New York,
as
if they showed it.
As he suggests. I see the point, and as we've talked about, yes, that's true, but I disagree because what he's talking about is large, and what everyone is basically agreeing on is that, yes, media has changed. The way that we digest media and the speed at which we access it has changed. But what hasn't changed is the magnitude of specific moments. Now, because the way media has changed, there's now more cards in the deck for people to play with. This E3 used to be the place because that's the way of getting all the press there, and then they report to their followers and their particular outlets, and so that was why the magnitude of that moment was so huge. I 100% agree that that's probably been diluted a little bit, but I don't know that it's been diluted as much as it's just simply been augmented, because now you have a scenario where we know about the PS4 and the next Xbox going into E3. So what do they do with that moment now? They've saved themselves that time of having to announce the console and talk about it. Now they have a big stage to do something else. So I don't think it's dead. I don't think E3 is dead, just like I don't think any big media event is dead. I just think that the way we digest media now has changed and it's been augmented, but I think it's a little far-fetched to say that those, it's not like the industry doesn't need those things. Nintendo's done a great job with Nintendo Directs and keeping their audience informed, and it's very fast-paced and in the moment, but that still doesn't mean that they can just punch a pass and just say, oh, we're not going to have anything to do with any big gaming events. They're still going to have a presence. They'll still announce some stuff at E3. So I don't think it's dead. I just think it's been changed.
Yeah, but isn't that?
I don't know, but I think the trajectory. I think that the vector for where it's going might not be as positive as what you're saying. I mean, 10 years ago, the idea that Sony and Microsoft would hold independent events to announce consoles, and that would not happen
months prior.
Yeah, weeks and months prior to E3, would have really, really had people scratching their heads and be like, what the fuck are they doing? And of course, now it's almost just the logical thing to do, because you don't need that singular media event to get all the eyeballs on it. Now, I agree with you that something like E3 does have a certain gravity that those events by themselves don't have. And certainly, at least within the mainstream press, you're going to get a lot more attention from mainstream news outlets that don't normally cover this kind of thing, during that week. But again, the people who are actually interested in this news are already going to know where to seek it out anyway. So
sure,
I don't entirely disagree with what you're saying. I mean, E3
There's just more cards in the deck, is my point. I mean, there used to just
but when you have more cards, that definitely
kind of the very definition of dilution?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of the very definition of diluting it, though?
Possibly, if you've got an ace card versus a different card, they mean different things. So
that's true. And if you've got an ace and I've got a pair of twos, I win.
I know you've got a pair of teeth. Talk to you for-
Bingo! All right. Well, we'll find out. I think this year will actually be pretty interesting because Nintendo's doing their own thing. Sony had held a press conference quite a while ago. Microsoft's going to have one 2 weeks before E3. I do think E3 will be interesting this year because it will be probably the first year where I think the biggest news will not be broken there. And we'll have to wait and see. I would love to be proved wrong. That would be very cool to get some cool new.
Yeah, the big news at E3 is it's gonna be called the X Circle, and it's just a console that's just like a circle instead of a box. There's the head.
That's innovation for you.
All right, guys. Well, that is going to do it for this week's Skirmish. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this week, and please join us once again whenever we decide to do something next week.
Yeah.
When we will be mercilessly cleaving the fat from the gaming stories of the day. For Brent Adams and Daniel Kaiser, I'm your host, Tony Grice. And remember, cry havoc. And
I bet Microsoft has made it illegal within Microsoft to actually have a red light configuration that could look like a ring on the next Xbox. I bet that decree came down from on high. They were like, if there is a red circle of lights on this thing, you fucking die.
There's no indicator lights on this new console whatsoever.
That's exactly right. It can't red ring if there's no lights.
When it dies, it just disappears.
Sir, we're having a major problem with it just crapping out. No, I don't care. Put everyone into removing every light from every system that we've got. That's what's most important.
No lights.